Hey guys, welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to be talking about my number 11 list for 2019 films. I know coming soon I have my top 10 best of the year for 2019 coming soon. My top 5 worst of 2019 film list coming soon as well. But before we get into the best and the worst of 2019, I wanted to take this video to kind of talk about films that I really enjoyed throughout 2019. Some of them were even on my top 10 list at one point and another throughout the year. But by the time the year came to a close and I kind of saw every film that I was anticipating to see in 2019. These films, for whatever reason, didn't quite make my top 10 best of the year list. And most of them are good films that I want to talk to you about, that I gave good reviews to throughout the year. But for one reason or another, they didn't make the top 10 list, but they're good enough films that I want to talk about them here in this video before going into my top 10 best of the year list. So let's talk about some films that came out in 2019 that I really liked. I highly encourage you to go out and see pretty much all of these movies, depending on what kind of film viewer you are. And I will let you know what I really like about them, but kind of ultimately why they didn't make the top 10 list when I get around to that video. So let's start at kind of the first film on this list. This is kind of a non-specific order. These are just films that didn't quite make the list. They probably could have made it at one point or another, but there were 10 films I saw in 2019 that I liked better than these ones. So let's start at a film that actually I think was believed released on Netflix. Yeah, I saw it on Netflix, called Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile, probably the longest title in the 2019 film. This is a film that was about Ted Bundy and how a person he was living with at one point thought he never committed these horrible crimes that he really did. A really good movie. Definitely not like a best of the year list kind of movie. I thought Zac Efron played Ted Bundy very well in this movie. They did a good job with kind of showing kind of what the person he was living with saw with him, because it was kind of his girlfriend at the time and she had a child with another man and things like that. Kind of how they showed how hearing all this stuff on the news about him and stuff like that, she really didn't kind of want to believe at first. But obviously he was doing horrible things. There's things about it that clearly displayed that he was doing horrible things, like blood on his shirt and coat, and him being out super late at night and not having a good explanation as to why he was out so late and things like that. So it was a good film. Obviously, it's definitely for people who have a stronger stomach. So for those who can't handle like murder in film and things like that, definitely don't watch it if you're are kind of squeamish on that kind of stuff. But for those who kind of want to see a film just how horrible of a person Ted Bundy was when he was alive before being executed, I thought Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile was a good depiction of kind of just how horrible of a person he was and how supposedly the women of his life kind of didn't see this more horrible side to him at the time that he was alive. Another film that I really enjoyed in 2019 was Us by Jordan Peele. Really good film, really good thriller. Definitely kind of a cool doppelganger kind of a story. There's things about it that I really liked for sure. It's definitely a well-crafted movie, but at the end of the day, I just didn't quite love it as much as the films that are going to be in my top 10 best of the year list. But Jordan Peele still made a great film that I highly recommend you go see. We also have Lego Movie, the second part on this list, another film that I really enjoyed. I am kind of done with these Lego movies, though. I hope they're kind of bring those to a close pretty soon. I am getting kind of sick of them, to be honest. But for what they made here, it was a very enjoyable sequel. Not quite as good as that 2014 Lego Movie, which was much more original and much more fun, but still a great continuation. It was great to see Emmett and the gang again in another Lego movie. I highly recommend you go see it, but it's not quite a top 10 movie for me. Another film I enjoyed in 2019 was the film Brightburn. James Gunn's brother and himself, I think, wrote the script for this, and I think they both produced it. They did not direct it, though. Very good movie about kind of an evil Superman. Definitely Superman in reverse in many ways, but I thought it was very clever, very well handled. Definitely an enjoyable time at the theater. So for those who kind of want to see a Superman in reverse kind of a story, Brightburn should do the trick for you. X-Men Dark Phoenix. I know this film a lot of people really did not like a lot. I liked it. Definitely kind of done with X-Men for the time of being until they find a clever time to reboot it with Disney and things like that. But for being kind of a final X-Men movie of sorts, I guess. It was enjoyable. It was a good time at the theater. There's things about it that I like. You could definitely kind of tell, though, that Simon Kinberg hasn't directed a lot of stuff yet. So hopefully he will work on that more as he becomes more so a director over producer over time. Really enjoyable film, though. So, I mean, if you like X-Men, yeah, go out and see it. It's not an amazing movie. But if you like X-Men and want to see another great X-Men movie, X-Men Dark Phoenix isn't a terrible way to go. We have another film on this list that I fairly enjoyed for the most part, but I can easily tell you right now the original version of this story is way, way better, and that's Jon Favreau's 2019 remake of The Lion King. Really enjoyed this movie, but for the most part, it's just kind of the same story all over again with really good visuals. They happen to be really good photorealistic visuals, so visually it's an achievement. Yes, it's still a good story. Yes, it's still that Lion King story you know and love. Can't quite put it on my top 10 list for the simple reason that there's just not enough creative liberties done with it. Maybe do a couple of different things. They didn't really do a lot of different things with it besides making it look better in a photorealistic form. So really enjoyed The Lion King, the 2019 remake. I highly recommend seeing it, but I still think the original animated film is way better. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was Quentin Tarantino's most recent movie. Really enjoyed that movie. There's things about it that show how much I love Quentin Tarantino and how original his films are. Didn't quite make my top 10 list. I still highly recommend you go out and see it. It's a great Quentin Tarantino movie. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I highly recommend seeing it, but it's not a top 10 movie for me. We also have Shazam here on the list, a great superhero film, funny. Zachary Levi did a great job playing the Shazam character. Definitely a lot of fun. It definitely was big in the form of a superhero movie, which I thought was really clever. So really enjoyed the movie. Not really a top 10 movie for me, though. Really enjoyed it, though. And I highly recommend you see Shazam. But then we have the Shaft reboot that came out earlier this year. Definitely cool to see all three generations of Shaft in this movie, whether that is Samuel L. Jackson, Richard Roundtree, or now Jesse T. Utcher's the third generation of Shaft. Very funny movie, very fun movie, a great summer movie. But at the end of the day, it's not a great top 10 best of the year kind of movie. Highly recommend seeing that new Shaft, though. Another film that made this list was Godzilla King of the Monsters. Really enjoyed this film. It's a great fun time at the theater. It's a great continuation of that 2014 Godzilla movie. Not as good as that 2014 Godzilla movie for me personally, but still a fun time at the theater. It was cool to see King Ghidorah and Rodan and other cool big Godzilla monsters make it to the screen again, like Mothra and things like that. Really fun movie. Highly recommend you go see it. But Godzilla, King of the Monsters, at the end of the day, did not make my top 10 best of the year list. Another film I want to talk about in this video that people did not like, that I personally liked, was Gemini Man by Ang Lee. Good movie, not an amazing movie. There's things about it that definitely show kind of what Ang Lee can do as a director. I thought Will Smith's role was very good in this movie. There's the overall concept I thought was intriguing about it. There's nothing super amazing about this movie, though, to be honest with you, but really good movie. Wouldn't dream of putting on my top 10 best of the year list. But if you like Will Smith, if you kind of want to see what Ang Lee currently worked on, it's not a bad way to go. I put Gemini Man on this list. Another film I enjoyed in 2019 was The Art of Racing in the Rain. Fun dog movie, fun drama. Definitely some moments that'll make you cry in it for sure. A great drama, a lot of things I really enjoyed about this film, but at the end of the day, there's nothing super great about it to the point where I put on my top 10 best of the year list, but I do highly recommend seeing The Art of Racing in the Rain. Detective Pikachu is finally the video game movie that broke the video game curse. Hopefully we have nothing but great video game movies from here on out. I really enjoyed this film. I thought it was great for both Pokemon fans and for people who are starting to get into Pokemon, and for people like me who were once a part of Pokemon but kind of have left that crowd for a while now. I thought it kind of brought all these groups together for a great Pokemon live action experience that was fun for basically everybody. It was funny. Ryan Reynolds played a great Detective Pikachu in the movie. There's just tons of lovable things about this movie. So Detective Pikachu made this list, but not quite my top 10 best of the year list. Guy Ritchie's 2019 remake of Aladdin was also on this list. Really like that movie. Highly recommend going and see it. Will Smith plays a great genie in this movie. It's definitely a Will Smith year. He's been in tons of movies recently. I thought he was very good as this genie. I thought for being a role that's kind of competing with what Robin Williams once did in that animated movie, I thought Will Smith perfectly handled being his own genie. Didn't have to compete with that Robin Williams genie too much. I thought it was a great film experience. I highly recommend seeing Guy Ritchie's Aladdin remake, but it's not quite best of the year quality. Knives Out is a murder mystery film that I highly recommend seeing. It's funny, it's clever, it homages Agatha Christie's murder mystery stories very well. There's things about it that are great. It has a great cast in it. It's a well-directed, well-written movie. There are things about it that are very clever. For me personally, though, it wasn't quite a top 10 list kind of movie, but I highly recommend seeing it, especially if you love Agatha Christie stories. It's definitely in the spirit of that, and it modernizes kind of what she brought to the table as a writer from back in the day into film in a very smart way. So I highly recommend seeing it, but it's not a top 10 movie. Another film that I really liked was Doctor Sleep. It's a continuation of The Shining. It shows kind of what that little boy from The Shining has done over all these years, kind of how he got a job at the sleep clinic and kind of how that helped with his shining ability and things like that. It's a very clever story. I thought Stephen King and everybody involved made a very good Shining continuation in this film. I thought they brought back the Overlook Hotel in a very clever way. It's creepy at times too, which it should be. It's a Shining sequel. It's a very good movie that unfortunately didn't make the top 10 list, but I do highly recommend seeing it if you like The Shining and are curious to see how that story continues forward. Then at the end of this list, we have Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, a film that I really enjoyed. There's things about this film I really liked. J.J. Abrams handled them very well. There's certain barriers he had to work with, like the death of Carrie Fisher in real life and things like that. There's certain things that didn't quite feel as good as they should have been about it, but I really enjoyed the film overall. If you're a Star Wars fan, it is an enjoyable, entertaining time, but there's things about it that don't quite wrap up as strong as you might have been hoping they were going to be, but still a good movie, still an enjoyable Star Wars film that I highly recommend seeing, but it didn't quite make the top 10 list. So that's my number 11 list, you guys. I hope you check out all these films. I think all these are very good movies, but the films I'm going to bring up on my top 10 best of the year list, I think are better films. But I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys here for some of those next videos.